There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no. Which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print, say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
Hello, everyone. Hello to our cousins out there in Internetlandia. Thank you for joining us for another week of We Are in Hell. Week 1 million and million and million. A lot of stories and events going on in small measure. So we'll probably be doing a little game of popcorn here today, talking about all kinds of little things, but while we wait around for big things to continue to cook. So, as you can see, we have our illustrious Mr. Mayor Jared with us, the talented Mr. Mayor Jared. So glad
Good
to have
morning,
him
good
here.
afternoon. What's going on, everybody?
Exactly. We're glad to have him with us this week. Sometimes he's off entertaining the world. So,
Like next week. I will not be here next week.
Yeah.
Stay
So
tuned.
he's gonna be off entertaining the world. So you'll be stuck with me here, talking some nonsense, I'm sure. But we love to talk nonsense, don't we? That sounded really Trumpy of me. Don't we? Don't we love to talk nonsense? If he'd admit it. But yeah, no, we're glad to be with you. Glad to have another week together, even though it's mostly just commiserating. Shout out to Are You Time Traveler? Hi back. And we are glad at least that things aren't worse. But we might be at the point where things are, well, I mean, we know things are going to get worse before they get any degree of better, and that could take like a million years, but hopefully it won't. So we're hoping that maybe some of these things that we'll talk about this in this episode will kind of work themselves out, and some of these things maybe won't get as bad as looks like they're going to, because it looks like we might be headed for another recession. Unsurprising. So that's what goes on anytime we have a Republican president, because capitalism is so effective. So there's some indicators, we'll kind of unpack a little bit. It may be a little bit early to say, since we're not like professional economy watchers. So we'll see kind of where that goes. But it looks like there's a lot of talk about it. Looks like we might be headed for another recession. And it's just sort of like, could things really get worse, with money and living conditions at this point? We also, I'm seeing a lot of talk about, and I kind of had to bring this to Jared. I'm like, do you understand these words? And because there's some talk now that the AI bubble is about to burst, and how it's going to be so much worse than the .com bubble. But I don't really know what those words mean. So we're going to try to do our best to explain and talk about that, and kind of just where we are in that, because it hasn't exactly happened yet. But there's a lot of factors that are kind of influencing that. Mainly energy, I think, is going to be the big holdback here. So we'll get into that a little bit. And as you may have noticed, there was a summit or a meeting between Putin and Trump, where Putin is basically like, I do what I want. And Trump's like, yes, sir, and leaves. So he got mad and left, but then he keeps saying everything's great. And then they pulled Zelensky off the kids' table to come in and be like, I'm not doing it. It was basically just for show anyway at this point, because he knows people are upset with him for, basically ignoring Ukraine. And, and Zelensky suddenly making demands like that's allowed. Like, I think you're the one that gets told what to do, pal. So we'll get into that a little bit too. But so it's been a big week for like small stories. I was telling Karen before air, I was actually really surprised that Putin willingly came onto American soil. That was pretty like much of a power move, as far as I can tell.
That is one thing that you can kind of that is one thing where credit should be given, where like under the fact that the first meeting between Kim Jong-un, like North Korea, and the U.S. happened under Trump. The fact that he actually talks directly to leaders, like I've never fully understood in American politics where it was like supposed to be like hell yeah when Obama was like I will not speak to various world leaders. Like that's like kind of your only job as president is to be an international diplomat who hangs out with the other presidents, and then you give some speeches and you try like you're the vibe patroller of of your government. And so I personally like it when nations who are at threat of starting nuclear war actually like talk to each other and even put on the drama, the dramatic recreation of attempts to avoid nuclear war.
And we know that like what we hear, the trickle down bullshit, the state story that we get fed is not remotely true. Like whatever they're going to do, they've already ironed out the details. They're just saying we'll just like keep everybody like in suspense and hold back while we work this out. Like whatever they met and talked about, like it was already whatever it is was already a done deal. Like everybody gets what they want out of this situation, and meaning like America and Russia, like Ukraine does not factor into this. Ukraine has always just been like, this, like they are like a proxy, basically nothing, So like, and it's another thing we were talking about is like when you're on the left, you're kind of an island to yourself because you're fighting the right, you're fighting the extreme right, you're fighting liberals, you're fighting your own people because no one on the left agrees on anything except for a couple of things in some weird ways. So, and one thing that nobody on the left seems to agree on is that that we probably shouldn't be listening to the State Department about who and what with Putin, because somehow many on the left are very much convinced that he's like the worst thing that ever happened to the entire world and is like the worst monster of all time. And I'm like, with Netanyahu standing over here, like what's going on, guys? Like, come on. So I'm
you
really
end up
confused. Go ahead.
It's an interesting situation because you have that's kind of where you principles because it all starts to call the question of is it just like innocent not knowing, or is it intentional? Like if you look at, and of course I have to go to freaking Twitter accounts because like our politics are so vapid and just barren and nothing that's where the movement happens. That's where you actually can see like what are people thinking, what is the message, not even necessarily what people are thinking accurately, because whatever you post on any like owned platforms, any social media, which is all platforms, they're all owned by somebody, like what you actually see is definitely like I can see them tailoring stuff to me. I'm like, oh, I see. Twitter knows that this will get me mad, so I'm more likely to comment, and that
keep me here longer.
That adds value to them when they then sell ads. Be like, look how long we can keep people sitting on this website. So when you see like a Brooklyn dad, for instance, he has like confirmed Fed ties, where the Feds absolutely take. That's the thing where it's unfortunate that the Twitter files from a while ago they were considered connected to Elon because Elon was semi-cooperative with it because he bought Twitter and then released some of the Twitter files. You have journalist Matt Taibbi going in and saying, look, we have documentation now of the government sending seemingly innocuous emails. Hey there, we saw this thing you posted. Could you maybe please, so it's not direct government taking down posts, but it's, yeah, man, if the president emails you and says, please delete that post, and you're like a newspaper, there's a pretty large chance that you're going to do that, that you're just going to kind of play ball. So we
Right.
know that the sources that we see online, at least some of them, I think it's impossible to know who's being paid, who just figured it out through like social, being able to read the room and knows the right things to say so they don't get in trouble and like shadow banned online. Like your Brooklyn dads, for instance, that probably was like a real guy who started out just saying his opinions, moderate, like middle left Democrat, I think in New York, Brooklyn, I assume. And now he is just confirmed a paid guy who
Yeah.
gets money directly from the Democratic Party.
Paid operative, like documented,
Yeah.
like it's for real.
So it's weird to see how, like, who on the left is directly actually incentivized by these things and who isn't. You have, I'm pretty sure it was Ken Klippenstein. Sorry if I'm, like, blaming the wrong guy here. We have Ken Klippenstein when he talks about Netanyahu. Again, these are all freaking tweets. But he tweets about Netanyahu like, that guy's bad and he's a criminal and we should take him to trial. And then he tweets about Putin. He's like, the second that man steps off the plane, take the shot. And it's like, what is... Like we're all you get told that some things are, well, it's not just that it's bad, it's that it's like a unique bad. It's not that like how Trump gets. I do lend some credence to the theory of Trump derangement syndrome, where people will look at an act committed by the Trump administration and the Biden administration that are identical acts, but only the Trump one is considered bad. That happens with Putin quite a bit, where it's not that I think Putin is a great guy, but it is very strange to treat him as some like uniquely psychotic, evil demon man who is very popular in Russia and continues to win elections that are at least as democratic as our elections, if not slightly more democratic. I'm not saying their elections are perfect, but just this freaking week they were trying to do a gotcha where like Trump got on TV and he's like, yeah, Putin, he was talking to me about how they stole my election and it's because of mail-in voting and therefore I'm going to get rid of mail-in voting. And then they just pan over and go, Russia has mail-in voting, like so. So if Putin actually told him that mail-in voting was super evil and he has to get rid of it while having, I don't think Putin said any of that. I think Trump just wanted to talk about how he's getting rid of mail-in voting. So he just is like, oh, also Putin said, what a segue over here.
I think he gets a lot of the negative feedback comes from just being competent. And everybody here is so used to having Trump as an incompetent, tyrant king wannabe.
I tell you what, I bet you Putin knows the names of the cities he's taken over.
I mean, it's. I think I think Trump derangement syndrome really has evolved in here the second go around, just to also being both simultaneously bothered and used to incompetence at the top level. So not just him, but the whole hierarchy of people who surround him, and
which fits my theory of they are all fake American Idol performers who don't actually do anything, because there's no way that people who know literally nothing can be making the thing work.
Sure,
it's all of
absolutely.
the machinations around them. They're just the face. They're the advertising.
Right. And that has been something that people have always talked about. Like, is it the lizard people? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the oil industry? Well, yeah, all of it. Yes.
It's just
anybody
a boring...
with more money than God tells us what to do, and that's all that there is to it. I mean, there's really nothing more to it. So when
we're
you
gonna
look at
talk about automation in a second, but was theorizing in my freaking car driving around. I'm like, we have essentially an automated government where it is set to do the thing it is set to do. Like if it was it's like if it was a gas powered car and the nothing you do to that car short of fully replacing the engine is going to stop it from being a gas-powered vehicle. It has a certain set of purposes. It can go forward, it can go backward, it can do the things, but it is still going to be what it is unless... If you're within the system trying to do a thing that is not what the express purpose of the thing is, you're not seen as like, oh, this is democracy and we will make change toward the thing. No, you're seen as essentially a broken part and you just get replaced. That's what all of these know-nothing people are, and that's why they're important to be know-nothings, are if they were actually essential to the function of the machine, that could be an issue, because what if they had like, oh, let's go in some other... You either are serving the machine in the direction, the only purpose that it is made to do, or you are replaced by someone who will do that thing.
Yes.
And if you want to fundamentally change it, it'd be like, we're going to make this an electric car. It's like, well, unless you do so much overhauling that you essentially have replaced like the engine,
functional system,
the actual engine of the thing. We still all want the car part, the functions that are, because people will talk about, oh, Pepper, you want to just like destroy the entire government and go to like Mad Max worlds. Like, well, not necessarily. It's the function of transportation the good parts I think should be maintained and like continued. Like we should have society of some kind.
Yeah,
But
maybe society should stick around. It should just be more functional and people
you
serving.
can't just change a couple parts in the engine. You can't just send an AOC and just I'll just install some electric parts on this gas engine. It needs a complete overhaul and a replacement of the thing that actually makes it go. That's why I like this metaphor, because it's like the engine itself, the thing that creates. I don't think there are a lot of actors within the machine. I think it basically runs itself. It is essentially automated, where enough, like there are, of course, human beings acting in the machine, like filling out the papers, submitting the forms, blah, blah. But if they don't do that function, they get replaced by somebody who does. And in that sense, I don't believe anyone is consciously directing frickin' anything. You talk about who are the lizard people. I think we demand a villain as Americans. Like there has to be a guy, right? A guy or a group of guys, somebody doing something. I don't know. It's freaking, if you could Luigi all these CEOs, they are legally locked in to do exactly what they are already doing. They are just replaced. You could break part of the engine. They're just going to replace it with another piece that fulfills that function. And if it doesn't fulfill that function, it is swapped out with a piece that does. Can any like individual people, can this thing be directed at all? And I, at this point, do not believe so without without replacing the whole engine. Hey, my metaphor, look at that.
And that's we talk about it quite a bit. You hear about it from other leftist podcasters and such, and it's like we have this system, and that's all that there is, and people act like that's all that there is because it works so well for the people it's serving. And you have all these other people who like the massive people who it doesn't work for at all, who are like, hey, let's do something about it. So short of what you're saying here is that like we it's revolution when we get the guillotines out, or it's like a nullification scenario where it's just like, okay, we have to create this sort of like side government, this side organization of committees and things that in doing general strikes and working together in community. But we are definitely kept from doing those things because they don't want you having those kind of ideas. They don't want you communicating with each other and thinking about those kind of things. And if anybody poses any kind of a threat, they magically get Epstein and these kind of things. Like if there's any kind of threat to the superstructure, they either get replaced or they get replaced, like really replaced, like all the way replaced. And yeah, so it is. I think you're spot on there saying that the government is at this point automated, and I think that was sort of always the intention, that you
Who would have the power to change it? Like I cannot think of, even if a bunch of board of director dudes stood up, like a bunch of BlackRock shareholders, like we would like. It's like, well, sorry, there are literal laws in place that your company must be directed towards the maximum excess capital possible. That's why I keep bringing up the Luigi situation. That CEO could have been shot because he was going to start approving everybody's healthcare. He would not have been fulfilling his function as a CEO, his legally stated position. If he did a thing that was hurting shareholders, he could be sued and sent to prison in theory if they got like the worst of it. But in the same way, you can create a machine that just unconsciously and robotically marches toward its purpose, and its purpose at the moment is the generation of excess capital. You could not just as, I don't want to say easily as if it's like an easy thing to do, but you could instead have a machine that is relentlessly and mindlessly marching towards the interests of the mass of the people rather than the interests of the very, very small few. If it was, instead of creating excess capital, it was creating production for use values. Just like, oh man, we've tried as hard as we can to corrupt up this shit, but it's impossible because it's designed in a way that, like, as hard as it is, impossible I would say, as it is to create change within our current system, you got to kind of go. It seems that like countries like China are attempting to do the opposite, where they have their AOCs, but they're like capitalist AOCs who are the reactionaries who they try to get into government. They're gonna, but it just doesn't really work because like, what are you gonna do, man? It's like getting elected here. What's Mamdani gonna do? Even if he wins, even if he goes as hard as he possibly can? I guess he could do like the rent freeze. He probably could accomplish. It's like I talk about Bernie. What could he have actually accomplished even if you had a full Stalinist president who was like, I'm going to do the absolute edges of my power? You'd get like maybe a couple days of paid leave a year, and that would have been it. He can't decide that we have healthcare. He can't decide that suddenly like stock buybacks are going away and insider trading in the all this, like, you don't actually have the ability to change the system, which is the cleverest thing the system did.
But and also these people know and in the way that it took generations to get to the government to this state of automation, it also took generations pretty easily to get the public into a state of stupidness, essentially, because it's like we have all these incredibly horrible things going on, and then you get a few people out here, basically bots on the online, and
I think of our
getting people
literally
arguing
bots.
about, okay, like, so like all these horrible things are going on, and they're like, but a male cheerleader, and then you get
Those
all these
people
horrible
are.
things
I was
going
just
on.
gonna say that is the fakest shit. All I see are people quoting it, saying, "This is dumb. This is dumb. This is dumb. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares?" From all sides, because I don't
Yeah.
even believe there's freaking sides. At least, certainly not now.
Yeah,
They
no.
need
People just
to
want
make
to,
us
like,
think
they
we're
know
all
they can just whip
split.
people up into stupidity, and then they can get all these bar armies to argue with each other. So eventually, whatever side of the stupidity argument you're on, you somehow manage to engage and be distracted by it. The tech companies win because they've got your attention, and the government wins because you've made your own distraction. It's, oh, Sydney Sweeney wears blue jeans, and it's like, could you fucking people get some perspective here, please? So yeah, that's where we are right now. You can look at this whole thing as Putin's going to get what he wants. He's really basically running these talks, this organization thing. He's not reactionary and incendiary in the way that he gives a shit if Trump's like, we had a beautiful phone call. He's going to do everything I want him to do. Blah, 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 blah. He doesn't care. That doesn't make any difference. He's going to get that Donbass region like he wants. America's probably going to get mineral rights to whatever the hell is left of Ukraine. And, Trump did at least at this point say that he's not sending U.S. troops. So, like, if he sticks with that, good. So, like, and the only reason he's doing this right now is because he's once again trying to be on what he perceives to be his best behavior, because he's trying again to get that Nobel Peace Prize, which he's absolutely obsessed with, because Obama got one for basically nothing, but just being like a cool dude or whatever. Nobody even at the time. At the time, nobody was even like, oh, he's okay, I guess. But he's never gotten over it. So he's once again doing what he thinks is stopping a war, imaginary war, which Russia and America both know, like, it's a war, right? Like, and then, like, yeah. So it's all nonsense. It's all theater. But one of the players in this knows exactly what they're doing, and the other one just wants you to, think he's great and smart and amazing and equal to these other people on the world stage, and he is not. In the meantime, having people argue back and forth about male cheerleaders and if there's too much gold appliques in the Oval Office now. So
These things change with the wind, but part of what's like made me start talking about the whole, like, some actors are paid, some are not. Why do we believe the State Department? Well, NPR is absolutely one of our all. If you name a mass media thing, and it's state media, in my opinion, I'm not singling out NPR. Fox News is also state media. It receives funding from. It's not even that it's state media; it's that it's corporate media, because we don't really have a state.
rebrand.
Once you realize how much of the funding of Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, etc., are literally, I know it's like a meme, but big pharma, like Pfizer, pays just an incredible amount of money towards our news organizations, and then you throw in freaking Boeing. Somebody made a great point where it's like, why does Boeing advertise on CNN? Are the viewers going to buy jets? What is the purpose? It's no, they want to be able to. It's like, wow, maybe we'll get slightly better coverage when our planes start falling out of the sky, et cetera, et cetera. But NPR, I heard just yesterday, because they're talking about the Ukraine negotiations and Putin coming over to Alaska on that. And in it, I actually heard someone on NPR who was allowed to say, well, you see, Russia does have some reasonable demands. And it's like, oh, wow, things are changing. They didn't spend a lot of time on it, but they let this lady go on for a bit. Who's like, oh, like the thing I was just saying, where it's like, people act like Putin is this one special, like, evil man, but actually Russia, and they go on and talk about, like, well, maybe we shouldn't have NATO this, maybe they, and I'm like, wow, this is just shit that I got mega canceled for saying just too early. That's if you're anywhere paying attention, you're gonna say the thing 2 years before it's like okay it's like if you were against the Iraq war immediately, you become Dixie Chicks, where they were against the war a little too early, and then all their tours got canceled out.
Oh yeah, jeez. And all that they said, if you put your flashback goggles on, all that they said is that they were just disappointed, like, in the president, basically, like that they were Texans and he was Texans, and it made them embarrassed. And everybody acted like they were, like, I don't know, some sort of insurgent sleeper cell, like these stupid, like, musical group. No,
Having their
nothing.
hiccups. I'm pretty sure it's me.
Okay.
Am
All
I
right.
back?
Yeah, I can
Sorry
see
if
you.
I-
Everything looks right. Yeah. Yeah, well, it wouldn't be an episode of Social Contract if we weren't having tech problems. But
Since they went down the street with all the Cox trucks, it seems better. And you'll notice that I'm back and I didn't just completely lose connection. Like, that is an
Right.
improvement, technically.
Yes. And well, that kind of brings us into our next, area of discussion, which is that we talked about this a little bit last week, and we're going to perpetually be talking about this because it's ongoing. Tucson, as a resident, almost called you Texan, resident Arizonian, Mr. Jared knows. His neighboring city of Tucson just shut down. The town said no to a data center. Sounds like a great story. Excellent. But then they'll, these companies are not going to give up. They will just reform. They'll put up an NDA. They'll hide who they are for as long as they possibly can, and they will try again. Every state basically is dealing with this at this time. And there are a lot of states who are like, hell yeah, poison our fucking water. We don't need that water. Shit, get down here, data center. But that kind of the idea of that is that this magical sudden sprawl of energy needs and data centers suddenly, which is basically serving no one except the tech industry, who is again foisting these stupid things on us that nobody asked for, nobody wants, in an effort, down the road to eliminate their human workforce and automate everything, which again, nobody wants. And again, automation is not the enemy. The who is doing the automation and for what reasons are your enemy. Okay. So we're already losing lots of jobs. We're already losing, lots of, like what used to be farmland in most cases, so are we hitting the wall is basically a question that is coming up here. And the answer seems to be yes, because the people who, let's say, are maybe neutral to news, just like experts who have gone and surveyed this for their own selves, because China's having a lot of people coming in, a lot of like internet tourism, a lot of like influencers like, look how fucking awesome it is, right? Like everything's clean and you can walk around and have a good time and afford to eat and whatever. And so they're having a lot of this, which essentially is propaganda on their part, but it's like it's true shit. So it's like, it's not really propaganda. You can't really lie if it's true. Like if people are literally seeing it right there. But these, so-called, let's say like these experts that have gone there for the same sort of idea to, to their data systems and to understand their, how their economy and their technical worlds combine, are now essentially reporting back that they are so beyond not advanced. Like I don't want it to come off futuristic, because we are in this country so far behind of where we should be. They're basically just right there. They haven't done anything, futuristic or amazing. They're just where they should be in the American year 2025 here.
It's funny, they have fewer
30-some years
fetters.
behind.
They have fewer fetters to production, which is how they can get a lot of these projects done
Yes.
real quick. Which it used to be told to me as like, oh, well, they only go so fast because they're just killing slaves and doing horrible, unethical, and those excuses just keep falling away. Because before
Right.
that, it was, well, you're only seeing the one nice city they have. They put all their money in to make one, Potemkin village, I think is the expression,
yeah.
where they make fake towns, and then just
North Korea gets accused of that all the time too, and then people will be allowed to go there, and they're only allowed to say certain things, but they're like, well, this place was nice, and this was a short drive, and then this was pretty nice, and everything here is real clean, and then like you can buy a phone for like $2, So it's the same sort of idea, Western propaganda, that's really getting in the way of all of that. But essentially, the gap between what I'm getting at here when I come around on the guitar here is the gap between just the standard of what China is putting out, like basically the minimum standard. They have set the bar. America is like 30 years behind that, technologically speaking. Like we have an infrastructure that won't support what we have now before this AI nonsense happened, right? We already, look what happened in Texas a few years ago, where just like all of Texas froze. Like nobody. They're like, well, we didn't know that could happen, and we weren't ready. Blah, blah, blah. So you end up
Those
with
are
that kind
fetters
of
on
shit.
production and productivity that are artificially put into place. The reason Texas is allowed to just falter and become like that
Yeah.
is a combination of lack of willingness to build nuclear because nuclear
Yes.
does not make you as much money. And you hear
Right.
about in those same stories how people would receive multi-$1,000 electric bills because those private power producers are allowed to, like, contractually, they just like can charge what it's worth on the market rate. And oh, you were in a blizzard, so the market rate for your power went up. So now, like, it always is like a money grab, and we have now money grabbed our way into complete stagnation because it used to be you grabbed more money by doing things, and now you can grab more money by reducing quality and then charging rent for access to the slightly higher quality,
Right.
and the quality isn't even there anymore. If you want to get into the Tucson thing specifically, I'm kind of split on. I don't know what my final opinion of it is because in general, I'm pro growth. Degrowth used to be like a whole thing, and now very few people talk about it because I think more people are wise to, oh, this is a depopulation, kill a bunch of poor people plan. Like at the end of it, not the people who individually are like, I should be responsible with my consumption and not like, I don't know, throw toxic waste directly into the drinking water supply. Like, sure, obviously, of course, but
Well, there are obvious ways to do things, and America is never going to take that way. Quick note from the chat: Time Traveler says, "American technology, we have blankets with sleeves," and that really is the mentality of American technology: is just to pacify and to capitalize on nonsense and get you to, just basically just like neutralize yourself to life, and well, you are taken advantage of in every way possible. Please continue.
so one of the the biggest thing I have, like just as the layman, I'm certainly not a tech person. I have no expertise as to where data centers should or should not go. But the biggest hurdle to this in Tucson, Arizona, is that they like data centers. Your servers have to be kept cool. So if you put it in the hottest possible place, doesn't make a lot of sense to me as the layman. Maybe I'm dumb and don't get why this is a bad. Like, actually, it's a really good idea. But the other way, like a lot of them are then liquid cooled. So guess what? It uses a lot of water. Hooray! Another thing that the desert of Arizona definitely has a ton of. Like, why wouldn't you just build this by, like, I don't know, in like near the Great Lakes or something where it's just wet all the time and you have tons of, or maybe I think you were talking about this like weeks ago where they're like, we're gonna build a nuclear power plant because we need to power AI things, and I'm like, whatever, just please build the nuclear power plant though,
Whatever,
because
yeah.
that thing's gonna be great, and
Yeah.
it can be used for whatever. It's just generating electricity. It's just making power. We can use that power for anything, good or
And
evil.
combine it. You can combine that with green technology as well, like turbines and windmills and shit like that, and solar and stuff. Like this is not. It doesn't have to be like a single version of these things. Like on the
You put
power
things where
plant.
they make sense.
Yeah, well, on the nuclear power plant grounds, they can also have like wind turbines, like or solar panels. Like it can work in multiple ways and multiple levels.
Phoenix makes a
It,
ton of sense for solar because we have basically 365 days a year of
right,
sunshine.
exactly, and it's like
California,
it's so logical. It's so
maybe you don't want to
logical.
stick a nuclear plant like on the San Andreas Fault. That would probably be a worse idea. But then like Kansas, oh my God, just stick it there, man.
Right,
Well, they
right,
have tornadoes. Bury it. Like dig it down a little
right.
bit. There are solutions.
Exactly.
Like if you're Alaska, maybe you need some offshore or tidal, or like maybe that makes sense where you are geothermal. But
There is so much easy, obvious logic behind this. But again, as Jared was saying, with this automation, like obsolescence of the government, so that nothing really happens. Like obviously, like if us is just regular like people who don't like aren't experts in like anything, basically can just be like, why not just do that? Like that means lots of people think that. That means they definitely know it and are not doing it on purpose.
like if I
So
had to
that
guess, I would assume the real estate by Tucson is cheap, and that's the
yeah,
reason that they want to build it there, not because it makes any kind of sense otherwise. Because there was a city council, like there was a vote on whether or not we want to stick another an Amazon data center. There's a lot of Amazon data centers near me in Phoenix. We just started. There's like now there's like a chip plant because remember we were going to go to war over Taiwan a few years ago. So they're like, we don't have enough I'm saying it wrong. It's not microconductors. You know what I mean? Microchips, semiconductors. That's what it is.
yeah.
We need more semiconductors. So they built a plant in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's another water intensive industry. So it's like, are you only building this here because the local government gave you like a tax break and the real estate is cheap? Because that is what I assume. There was a city council
And when they get a
meeting.
tax break, that nobody gets a tax break. Like they get the tax break as the incentive to come there, and then the residents get taxed out the ass to make up the difference of what they are not getting taxed on.
There's a lot of like very low corporate tax rate, but we still, that's like, I'm over here. Taxation is not how the government raises money. You're not like, if your school is, if you're told like, oh, we can't afford our schools because blah, blah, blah isn't paying taxes. It's like money is not created through taxation. If the government wanted to pay for whatever, insert the thing you're talking about, they simply ask one of their banks to create that money on paper and then fund them, like they do with the military every single day. So like there is no balanced equation of taxation, and like tax and spend is a myth. Taxation exists to punish you as the working class for having money. It's just like scoop back some of your money so you have to keep going to work, et cetera, et cetera. But
Make sure
as long
that
as
you
we
do
have,
not gain enough capital to resist their plan.
as long as we do not have, as long as we have a personal property tax, but like then we're also getting rid of corporate property tax. That is insane to me that anybody anywhere in the world owns a home, but then you still have to keep paying tax on it. Like, you know, your primary domicile. If you have 4 houses, all right, do some property tax on the other 3 of them. But in China, there is no property tax. There's a bunch of countries that just don't do personal property tax. But we are over here subsidizing corporate property. Every time they want to build anything around me, they wanted to build a new hockey stadium for the Coyotes. You know, my favorite freaking team, a team that I like. And when they were doing the vote, and I couldn't because I didn't live in the exact municipality they were going to build it in. Part of the deal, of course, is, well, we're just going to not charge you any tax for this time. We're going to give you a great deal on the land. We're going to give you this on the construction, blah, blah, blah. And the residents rightfully voted it down, and then the team left the state. And my opinion is, good. If you can't make money as a professional sports organization, like, goodbye. You aren't like entitled to a bunch of it's not a bunch of our tax money, because that just goes against the whole thing I was just saying before. It's that we're gonna exempt you from that process so you can just keep even more, like, more, I don't know, profit, whatever it is. Like, so just, we don't want to in any way
It's all
interfere
just
with
profit
your ability
extraction.
to
Like,
make
you
money.
know, like, why is China so successful and how they've done this versus like why America can't seem to manage it? Like, is it like, do they have magic technology? No, the fuck they don't. They just are just doing the basic bare minimum. They seem like a utopia, magic wonderland, and nobody on the left can stop talking about them because all they're doing is just living at the level that they should be in this time in history. They have met the moment. And then you have places like America who have done the exact opposite because they have done nothing but extract income and extract money and extract funds. Excuse me, I'm trying to reach my plug so my camera doesn't die. But that's what we're talking about here. That is, you know, this is it is a very tale of two cities scenario here. Like, one did the right thing, one did the exact opposite of what is correct. My camera might die here real quick. Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, so yeah, that's what we're at here. It's like, obviously, like, you know, it seems like China's like this magic, you know, wonderland. It seems like other countries are compared to here. Americans are tired of it, but we're tired of it in a way that it's like, well, we don't have any agency to do anything by design. So that's how we end up here. So the question is, if we can't meet the moment, period, on AI with the rest of the world, and it's like, you can assume other developed countries have, you know, are not having the same problem as we are here. If we can't meet the moment, basically we're just going to further and further destroy American property, American income, American way of life, American wellness, because the environment's going to be even more trashed than usual, until there's nothing left. And we have talked about this before. The people that are funding this government, right? The ones who are running the show, the oil companies, the logging industry, the tech industry, you know, the ones who are making the money and dictating the laws, will go somewhere else where they get a better deal. The reason that it's so lucrative here is because what we're saying is we will give them tax breaks. We will not charge them for, you know, they don't have to pay taxes the way that they ought to. Whether it's a person or a corporation, they don't have to pay their fair share. They don't have to be, you know, they can be above everyone else. They don't have to abide by certain laws. They can have laws changed in their favor. They can, you know, make sure that they come out on top every time. And it's corrupt as fuck. And as soon as that, someone else makes them a better deal, off they will go. And we are teetering very close to a lot of that happening, because the pushback now, it's starting to become widespread, regardless of political ideology. You can have someone on the right, or like one of these MAGA people who are just like extremely poor or homeless, and you can have someone on the left in the same scenario, and the politics suddenly fall away, and everyone is still dealing with the same issues. We have a terrible quality of life, things are getting worse, and we are being scraped down by corporations. So maybe we go somewhere else, where, like in the Middle East, maybe the UAE, maybe Saudi Arabia makes a better deal to these people, because that's what's coming. They got money to burn, so that's what's going to happen here. And I think that's also what's bringing us closer to what we were talking about earlier, which is a pending recession. If we weren't already in it, it's kind of hard to tell. But this also brings us closer to this AI bubble bursting, because nobody fucking wants it, and it doesn't actually benefit anybody except for the technology companies. So that's
if we're talking about
here.
the quote AI, like you were talking about they remember the .com bubble from back in the day, and now people are talking about the AI bubble, and I think that the causes of that are very similar to, well, there's a difference between, I talk about the next the next, how is it called when you have a technological the next industrial revolution is the phrase I'm looking for.
Digital
like
revolution.
The fourth industrial revolution, where we go from even where a lot of physical tasks in the real world are just literally done by robots, like that form of automation. I mean, you look at factories and how they take fewer and fewer people every year to actually operate, where now you have in some cases entirely autonomous factories, dark factories, because you can just turn the lights off because it's robots working. Yeah, I want to remove as much menial labor as possible. If you ask me what like the purpose of life is, like what is humanity all about? I think it is mastering our environment through technology in a way that reduces the amount of labor that we have to do. That's what freaking agriculture is. We used to chase animals around, and it's like, well, what if we, using technology known as a fence, keep them in one area? What if we take these plants and through technology make it so we have to gather fewer of them because they're bigger and have more nutrients? And like that's what we've been doing since I think that's what defines what
got their
humans
assholes
are.
Out of the dirt and stood up. That's exactly what we've been.
It's like
doing.
literally that is what separates us from animals. Ants work together and build things, but ants do not increase the level of technology to make their ant lives easier. They're just at the level of ants. Same thing with like wolves and other communal species. Yeah. The thing that separates humans is development, the fact that we advance, and we are very, very close, definitely within our lifetimes, unless a world war cripples that progress. We are at the point where like human labor is basically unnecessary.
Like, pretty much always, it really is. And we're barely on the cusp of it. Think about, okay, if this was handled, let's devil's advocate here, which should be what happens. But still, if all this was being handled properly, managed well and healthfully, with people in mind and growth in mind to make things better for people. Look, if this shit was useful to people, and if there were an alternative for this, and we were getting money from a robot tax, and there's always pushback from people saying UBI or robot tax or whatever, and that just means the companies will inflate the prices of everything. Like, yeah, they would. You can't just be like, here's money. No, you've got to also have some legislation in there about like, okay, also nobody gets to raise their shit above a certain amount.
I only support the taxation
or whatever.
I only support the taxing away quote bad businesses if it is done with the intent of making it impossible to deal with, so then it becomes absorbed by the state. Like, if this is for the purpose of nationalization, not our current shitty state, don't get me twisted. I don't want frickin' Trump to run I don't want future president, what is it, Jill Biden, whoever his son, whoever it's going to be. I don't want them to have control over everything, but like a people's government where the people actually own the thing and it existed and was operated for benefit of the people and not.
We're talking like best options here.
Yes, like these companies. The only way that you get through this, because the technological revolution I just described, the fourth industrial revolution I just described, that's not the bubble that's going to burst. It's not that, oh, it turns out we can't automate them. We actually can automate far beyond what we're currently doing. It's that the market valuation of those things is grossly inflated. In the .com bubble, you had people paying valuing rando just shitty websites for millions and millions of dollars. It's like if you look back and I don't know, there are only 4 websites now. It's all like Google, Facebook, or Twitter, but imagine, like Newgrounds or some shit way back in the day where you would post animation. That kind of website would be like, oh, it's worth $1 quadrillion. And then that, of course, was a bubble that did burst because most websites generate no money at all. They still can't make Twitter profitable. So the fact that it's
that speculation somehow in that .com era was how Elon made a shit ton of his money.
That's
he
how
was involved with that pets.com.
Pets, oh my God.
Remember, that was like the main thing. Like, that was the big argument. What pets.com? And it was like they had inflated the value to the extent that like the speculators, the speculators or whatever were making money and trading money that it was imaginary, right? Because money is made up and fake. But then in reality, these things were not even there. It's like, but Bitcoin, like, it's not there. Like, if there's nothing there, it's just thin fucking air. It's somebody's
You make money
head.
now by developing an app that you then hopefully get bought by somebody with actual money, because none of this tech actually creates profit, it turns out, I guess, unless you consider the whole their real purpose, which is mining data. So like data is the new, like, is the gold rush, and we have data which is worth money. So like they are actually worth money.
Like if we had like Walking Dead, you walk out your door and it's Walking Dead tomorrow. That shit is not there. Like, it's not real. It doesn't count for anything. Just like a literal dollar bill would not at that point. Like the shit that's real is the shit that is being harmed the most, and that's the problem. Where China and other developed countries are using this to elevate themselves and get on top of these new trends and make them work. America is stripping itself for parts.
People who like true real commies will know. We're kind of waiting for China to reduce its work week because that's the next.
That's probably next. Yeah,
people did complain.
Example.
People complained and criticized rightfully about Chinese people having, in some cases, like the lower classes of the Chinese people. What, they still have class? I thought they were communists. But the poorer people in China,
is a billionaire, for Christ's sake.
Yeah,
like,
but the poor people in China did work insane hours, and you would have people would do like, oh, they have 6 people all sleeping in like 3-level bunk beds and basically a jail cell, and yes, there were work dormitories. They aren't like, you weren't fucking locked into them like literal prison though, which I would hear. It's like, no, you'd work like a month on, then you'd go back a month off and go back to your village. So it wasn't like true hell on earth, even to the standard of a lot of U.S. jobs.
And is that any different than like immigrants that have to live like multiple people to an apartment, sometimes strangers to each other, just to have somewhere to be able to afford to live and work at the same time?
It's still not good or desirable, but you look at the alternatives, like you just said, which is people here just sleep on the frickin' streets and still have jobs. But I digress. Yes. We are waiting for that, and that kind of thing is going away. Xi Jinping has outlawed the whatever 696 now, the work all goddamn day schedule that they were putting people on before. That's been straight up outlawed. Well, and then you hope that companies, I'm sure, are still trying to get away with it, but they're moving in a direction that I like. But they are reaching a point where they got to start reducing the work week, or you have to start doing imperialism. Like the only way you can, like, you either keep doing the growth. And yes, China does a lot of capitalism. The state wields capitalism currently for public benefit, but at some point you just turn into America, where you're like, well, crap, we have nowhere else for our excess capital to go, except for cutting down the work week and making people like. Instead, we have China. They're starting to do what we do, where they put factories in other countries, and like they're making. I saw a headline where it's Chinese EV manufacturers, like they're doing more outside of China than in China for the first year ever. And
now it's time for them to do that. Now they have built themselves up to a standard, at least a bare minimum standard, where people are living well. They are, they basically are doing good for themselves. Now it's time. They did things in the right order, in the right way. Now it's time to expand. They went from basically rule nothing to, the biggest conglomeration of technology and city and living and dwelling in the planet. And then now it's time to expand. It's a perfectly logical situation. And that doesn't make them heroes on the world stage. It doesn't make them magicians at knowing how to do shit. It's just the logic of positioning yourself to be a global leader, and because you're taking that seriously, instead of letting a bunch of yahoos come into your government cut and run, and then ultimately probably just go to prison and be like, whatever. And then a bunch of new ones do it for like, we're now at like year 40, 45 of that. So, that's how that works. Comparing the two, they are not, it's not utopia. It just seems like it because things here are so fucking bad. That's really what you need to keep in mind when the left is going on and on about China, because it's just for continually having our minds blown about what could be. And like if they really were in a utopia situation, it would still be like millions of years better than what they've even got now. They're just what that should be now. We should all be on this level, and we're not, and that's the issue. So yes, again, another American failure.
The U.S. and China are both at kind of different crossroads, and I have higher hopes for China to make logical decisions. Hopefully, they're more like long-term and proactive than short-term profit-seeking. But it would be extremely easy for them to essentially not fall into the trap, because I don't think the Politburo of China, I don't think, is stupid. So like I'm hoping any day to see. And there have been headlines talking about moves to reduce the work week in China. But like, freaking go for it, dudes! Like.
Yeah,
actually
they have
do it.
done enough to allow for the next logical step. Everything track their progress. It's logical step followed by logical step on what you do to position yourself on the world stage so that you become a global power when the other countries around you can barely stand after what they've done to themselves.
So one of the first volleys thrown in this whole AI bubble bursting thing was when the AI language model, I don't know, the AI model, I don't know enough about this stuff. But like, how you have Chat GPT, and then there's like is the big one, then there's other AI models that people use.
There's a million different stupid websites that do this crap. So
DeepSeek was the Chinese one, and the headline about it was how cheaply it was produced. Because you can spin up a lot of money, and that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years or so. Like when, what was it, like, or Super Bowl ads for just, you keep seeing ads that's just for AI, but it's very vague about like what actually, it's a company. What do you do? We do AI. We're like, well, what? We're a company that does AI. Like, what do you do with AI? AI. Much money was raised off of that. That's what the bubble is people have been running around marketing people and et cetera, people who talk to lobbyists, et cetera, have been running around saying, no, the next big thing is AI. We do AI. Give us money. So you end up with these extraordinarily overvalued, where it's like, we got $600 billion going into making the next layer of ChatGPT version 6 or whatever, blah, blah, and then rando Chinese companies like, we spent $10 million, and here is DeepSeek, and it's slightly better than everything the U.S. currently has. And that was a big wake up to anybody who just piled billions of dollars into some AI company. It's like, what do you mean you can just do this for a few million? Are you guys just like scamming? I don't want to call it scamming because it's the ultra rich.
About what was the it was like a metal production, like,
yeah, they got a new technique for steel production, for iron production. Yeah. That's what you would run around with pets.com. Elon Musk was running around with pets.com, apparently going like, you don't understand, pets.com is going to make so much money, it's going to make all this money through the internet. How is it going to make money? Well, the internet. But what with the internet?
Yeah.
It's just like today
at that time, people were still, the internet was still new, at least
we barely had email.
Yeah, exactly. So people were like, oh, this could be, and that's exactly the thing. It's all speculative. Yes, AI could make our lives massively better, but how?
It's not going to make them that much more profitable,
right? Like, yeah. So that's again where we are. People have spent so much money on speculation that so far has garnered negative results, especially for people who don't want anything to fucking do with it. That, and then now you've got these tech companies and all these people who invest in the tech companies going like, nobody wants this. Where's the product? What do we get? And then that's how we end up in the .com scenario again.
We have whoever this guy, Eric Gordon, some entrepreneurship professor, but the University of Michigan School of Business, and he previously called the AI boom an order of magnitude overvaluation bubble. And that's what I mean, where it's people who have just sunk an insane amount of money into this.
So that even says it's even worse. That is even worse than the .com. But with the .com,
there's just more money involved.
Kind of offered you a thing like, oh, we could buy all of our pet supplies off this website. Wow, that's a great idea. I would love to do that. It comes to my door. Excellent. Yeah, now we do that now, and it seems like so routine. But at the time, like 25 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, it was just like, whoa, that is so like obvious that that's what we should be doing. Let's do that. So there was sort of a payoff idea there, and that still blew the fuck up because it was overvalued. And now we've got something that's just like, what even is this? And they're not using it for anything useful. It's basically like the internet was supposed to be great, and we're using it for like the bare minimum of shit. Like we argue with each other online and we look at pictures of cats, and the cats offset the arguing because everything is horrible all the time, right? Like our the things that we do online, like banking and bill pay and buying groceries and stuff and applying for jobs, like that's so basic and so minimal to compare to what we could be doing with it, plus automation, if we had the infrastructure and if it were allowed to succeed. But everything is being, strangled and choked by what we were talking about earlier about this sort of planned obsolescence of letting the top play, while we would be living like those people live, just functionality wise. I don't mean like, money wise, but like functionality wise. You think if like a super rich person wants something, they got to wait a second to get it? Like you think if they're like, I want ice cream now, like it doesn't, they don't just snap their fingers and it materializes, it fucking does. Like that's how it works. And this also is probably going to be a big indicator, if we really are in a recession, which is not like some, oh, could you imagine? No, it happens all the goddamn time. It happens under every Republican president because capitalism is such a good system. And the last few times that it happened, it was bad. So with things already being bad, adding more bad onto that, like I have a hard time even like wanting to think about it because shit is awful already. Everything is it's like homelessness, food deserts, food, cleanliness, like everything that you could point to, like health of the planet is all-time lows. Like pay, minimum wage, everything is at the lowest standard it could possibly be at. So what happens when a recession hits shit like that? Like I don't know that we've really ever been on that level exactly. Every other time it just sort of like struck when things were going pretty good. Because we also talking about bubbles popping. The housing bubble was, in 2008. That was a huge disruptor to our way of life and our, our economic standing and how things work. And things got worse. And every other time since then, things have gotten worse. So, it's hard to even fathom that at this point. But one big indicator I was hearing about that I don't know if people are really connected the dots on this one is that at the same time as people are saying recession, there's, I don't know, you guys can hear that. There's a lot of thunder going on right now, and I don't know if it's coming through, but it's thundering. But at the same time, there's this little bitty story that's come out that says, hey, since we've been taking notes on this, Americans are drinking alcohol at like staggeringly low rates, like the lowest rates basically like since ever. Like basically. And if you think about that, like the one thing people in this country will never ever give up is drinking. So if drinking has become unaffordable at this point, then that right there should tell you all you need to know about how good the economy is functioning and is going to function. Because, basically it didn't matter how much money they had to spend on booze and cigarettes, people were going to get those things. And now, like, that should be a pretty prime indicator, I think, of things not going well. And once you're in that loop, you really can't get out. You have to wait for it, and it could take years. So good luck, everybody. I mean, like, I really don't know. I don't have like an end note on that because this, like, all of these bad things coming together and then saying there's going to be a recession on top of it, like, at some point on the world stage, America was always supposed to be like the number one. We had more money than anybody. We had more opportunity than anybody. We were the land of milk and honey. You could do anything. The American dream, blah, blah, blah. But that's been gone for decades, So like eventually we're going to go all the way, the rest of the way underwater on the world stage, not just unto ourselves, who we mostly are already living at, horrible quality lives. But at some point, people are just going to be like, it's not worth it. And tourism here is down from the rest of the world just because a lot of countries are just saying, don't go there. It's just not safe. It's not worth it. There's nothing there for you. And that's not just like countries warning each other, like, or warning their people about it. people also just aren't interested in coming here in ways that they used to be. Like, what are you going to go see? You're going to go walk around like Los Angeles, like Dirt City. Like, that place fucking sucks, right? It's completely empty in the daytime, and there's just like nothing. It's like, do you want to go like everything in America? It's like, oh, we're gonna go, and then it's like somebody like, we're gonna go to this place, and then you pull up to an abandoned, burned out building, and that's the place. And it's like, you hold up your pamphlet, like, that's not it anymore. That's everywhere here now. Everything is just nothing. And it's like, where do you go from there if you don't turn things around, and there's nobody going to turn things around, and nothing's going to turn anything around? And even if you go from incompetent stooge president to somebody who seems competent and in charge, they're still feeding into the same system. It doesn't matter if they're doing it more willfully than incompetent stooge president. So do you have any thoughts on this? Because I really don't. I don't know where it goes.
This is going to be we're about at the hour here, so this will be the last, I guess, little lecture that I go on. But the interesting thing with AI, which has happened with every industrial revolution, is, so like, I'm reading through Capital right now, like the actual book, the whole thing, which I'm not, like, which it sounds almost embarrassing that I go around talking about communism, socialism, and it's like, oh, you haven't even read Capital? It's like, I don't think Capital is a thing you should read early in your journey. I think it's something you should probably, like, if you don't have a knowledge base, it's like you're jumping into a higher level college class than you're ready for. It's like, I needed some 101 stuff to even, like, know terms. But a couple of the terms thrown around. Marx talks about constant capital and variable capital, how every enterprise has both. Constant capital being, well, it's like, it sounds like the things that are constantly there. Like, if you're a delivery driver, the constant capital would be like the truck that you're driving, the warehouse that you park in, like the physical means of production, the loom, the thing that spins the yarn. He talks about yarn and cotton a lot because, it's back in the 1800s. But
that's what
then
was
you have,
popular then.
so AI would be a piece of constant capital. It's a piece of technology that you buy, and yes, you have to, like, maintain it, and there's updates, etc. But it's the key thing of constant capital is it doesn't really create new value. It can only, like, the value that's put into the creation of it, like, it has limits, as opposed to variable capital, which is a fancy way of saying labor power, human labor power that you put into a thing. You'll see over time the proportion of capital that is variable goes down and down. There are fewer employees. If you look at, like, the Ford manufacturing plants, that was part of his big innovation, right? He greatly reduced the amount of variable capital necessary to run his operations, which does save you money in the short term, but also the only way that surplus value is created is through labor. Otherwise, it kind of becomes, it really does become a zero-sum game. If you only have technology and machines, you can't really create capital, because labor is the only commodity one can buy that creates value. Like, I can have a computer and it can sit there and it doesn't create, and I can even set an algorithm to start going. It's still not, like, creating new value. It takes me, the human, to add labor to the thing to create value, specifically more value than I am paid to do it. That's the origin of the whole, you can't be paid the full value of your labor, otherwise there would be no profit and there could be no business. Like, if you aren't making more money for your boss than your boss pays you, hey, there you go. It's a basic math equation. You would go out of business. Your guy wouldn't make any money. So how do enterprises function when their variable capital is zero or so close to zero? Like, once you've automated basically everything, that's what you've done. You've eliminated variable capital. So where does surplus value come from? And I don't know the answer to that question. But that's what makes me, quote, optimistic, that as long as things are progressing in this direction, something has to happen. Things cannot remain the same if you've had this big seismic, really a seismic shift to production. How does the capitalist get his surplus value, which is the only reason you go into enterprise at all under the current mode of production, if there is no value creating commodity inserted into the production process? If you don't have a worker, how do you generate surplus value if the only thing that generates surplus value is the worker?
Yeah.
And that's the
A lot of
question we have
questions.
today to answer as communists.
Well, yeah, it's just there's a lot of questions in general here. Like we are kind of, I mean, I guess you would say every day of life from forever is uncharted territory. But we do have, you can look back at history in some measure to, just like a book from the 1800s could be relevant, right? Like you do look back and you could say, well, in some they're talking about textiles here, but was there really a fundamental difference between textiles and automation? Like, are we really talking about anything that differently? It's the product is still there. So but basically it seems as though that like when people are learning lessons from the past about what not to do, these people at the top are taking the same ideas, whether or not they've looked into them, and figuring out like what they can do to avoid the pitfalls of where it failed before, so that they can get as much as they can out of it
That's the
before.
creation of this service economy. Like we had a previous industrial revolution that greatly reduced the amount of variable capital involved with production, and then the kings of industry, whatever people kind of running the country, had to go, well, what do we do? Do we just let everything completely fall apart? Because I mean, freaking Spain fell apart back in the 1500s when they ended up with too much gold because it fucked up their whole economy by having too much money. Like these disruptions to this system can have all kinds of effects. Things can get better or worse, and not necessarily because of the things you would expect. But when we
Right.
had this big reduction in variable capital, it's like, well, what do we do? And then now you look around and, oh, it's like 75% or some insane amount of the U.S. workings, like production, is service economy. It's a lot of like we open a lot of Starbuckses and we make fake jobs for ourselves so we can have a fake economy so the thing will keep running. But what do you? We're about to undergo another layer of that, and what can we just get even faker? And that's why stuff like the Genius Act starts to matter. Where yes, our money is getting even faker. Now we're moving it over to various cryptocurrencies that's where we're going to stick our surplus value.
Yeah, it is in a way. What is different though between history and now is that there was actual physical product in most of most of the conversations about things. There was some sort of physical product. Now we're really just dealing in speculation and theory as a standard means of survival. So if the AI bubble crashes, what does that mean? If we're going into a recession now based on all of that, the speculative stuff that doesn't really actually exist, what does that mean? Tell us what you think. Send us some info, what you think about that. If you think that we've missed the point here somewhere, or something that we should talk about or something, or just beyond any topic. If you want to hear us pontificate about, reach out to us on our socials. We're on everything. You can find us pretty easily. So
I'm also realizing sitting here, I am here next week. It's the week after that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I am
Cool.
here next week. I told you correctly
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, no, we talked about it before, but I usually just like, you're just like, I'm not gonna be here, and I'm like, okay. So it's usually we're not that regimented and schedule keeping about things. It's like, okay, I'll do a show then. So yeah, but if there's anything you want us, questions, comments you want us to cover, reach out to us, of course. Like, follow, subscribe, do the whole booty do, you know what to do. And we will. It sounds like both of us are going to be back here next week to talk about whatever fresh hell has gone on. Maybe be able to comment on some of the stuff a little more.
I kind of hope there will be some Ukraine things, or at least
maybe
like a
something's
deal
going to
will
move
be
forward
floated.
on that. We'll have a whole week to find out about it. So thanks for joining us. We hope that you have a good week, and everything's not too stressful for you. So try to take care of each other. Try to take care of yourselves. Maybe do something nice for somebody if you can. That's the best way to kind of build community. Even if you can't physically partake in doing something for somebody, like, just be there, be listening ear sometimes. So we'll have maybe one of my solo shows. I will get into some community building things for like introverts and stuff like that. So if you don't know or you can't do about what, that kind of thing. Because, I love that. We will see you next week. Sounds like both of us. And until then, take care, and thanks for joining. So bye.